The sea gives nothing gently. A thunder of propellers splits the dawn and the water shakes like a hunted drum. Atlas glides beneath the hull's shadow, scar lines bright as chalk. He hears metal sing where songs once lived. The noise is a knife that never stops cutting. Nova swims close, tracing his wake as if safety could be drawn. Claire Hawthorne said, "Reduce speed, we're crossing a migration lane." Jackson Reed said, "Traffic control denies it." The bow carves forward, blind to the hearts below. A ghost of rope drifts like a snare, green and patient. Atlas turns, but the net waits with a predator's calm. Owen Brooks said, acoustic readings spiking, something huge. The ocean holds its breath. Nova falters as a siren shrieks from the ship. Atlas rises for air, his back a map of old wars. He breaks the skin of the sea and meets the iron face. Claire Hawthorne said, "Port 10, now." Steel answers with indifference. Water erupts. Foam becomes smoke. Then quiet, the kind that tastes of fear. The lane narrows to a choice, and both lead through pain. Dawn becomes a bruise across the horizon. Atlas carries the panic like iron in his blood. Nova matches his beat, tracing safety in circles. Claire Hawthorne said, "Slow to 7 knots." Jackson Reed said, "Current will push us off schedule." The channel narrows between reefs and lanes. Noise stacks like storm clouds, layer on layer. The sea's grammar is broken by engines that never learn to listen. Atlas tastes the ghost of oil in the swell. He banks, reading the cold maps that run through his bones. Nova drifts wider than she should. Claire Hawthorne said, "Visual on net debris off port." Owen Brooks said, "Marking coordinates." A gull's cry knifes the wind, and then is gone. Atlas keeps low, shadow inside shadow. The ship crawls, but still the world is too fast. A cable thrums somewhere unseen. Nova chirps a note that shakes. Atlas answers with a line that says, "Hold close." The day brightens and threats sharpen their edges. The lane becomes a maze of wakes. Atlas threads the seams, counting the rhythms that saved him before. Nova tests the outer edge and finds a wall of sound. Claire Hawthorne said, "Contact port quarter, maintain separation." Jackson Reed said, "Traffic reports are stale." A buoy clanks like a warning bell. The water grows crowded with echoes that do not belong. Atlas remembers rope burning like fire on living skin. He folds the memory into movement. Nova edges back, unnerved by the hollow thunder. Claire Hawthorne said, "Mark the debris field." Owen Brooks said, "Logged and relayed." The sky hangs heavy, a lid over steel and salt. Atlas lifts, then sinks, rewriting the path with each new bruise of noise. Nova hums a question that feels like fear. He answers with patience that costs him speed. The maze redraws faster than he can swim. The net appears as a rumor first, a darker thread under the skin of the sea. Atlas turns before it speaks his name. Nova does not see it until the floats bob like teeth. Claire Hawthorne said, "Debris off the bow again." Jackson Reed said, "It's drifting faster than forecast." Rope remembers every creature it has held. Atlas banks hard, pressing the water into a shield. Nova slips, startled by the sudden torque. Owen Brooks said, "Wind shift from northwest." The line lifts, a snake tasting the air. Atlas chooses the deeper road and steals a body length. Nova follows, late by a heartbeat. The floats kiss her flank and slide away. Claire Hawthorne said, "That was close." The ocean answers with silence. Atlas holds the course that keeps her heart unbroken for one more minute. Silence thins, and the engines return like weather. Atlas counts the beats between threats. Nova breathes, a tight ribbon of air. Claire Hawthorne said, "We need a lane change." Jackson Reed said, "Authorization pending." Bureaucracy moves slower than danger. The horizon stacks with hulls, a procession without faces. Atlas carries songs that do not fit this century. He sings them anyway, low and steady. Nova quiets, holding close to the tremor she trusts. Owen Brooks said, another alert ahead. A gull spirals down and lifts again, unwilling to land. Atlas measures the new distance and chooses the deeper blue. The world above roars its answer. Nova follows, a small shadow inside his larger one. The day is still young, and already the sea has asked for blood. The ocean softens to a lull, yet beneath the calm lies exhaustion. Atlas carries scars that read like scripture, each one a sermon of survival. Nova presses her small frame against his side, seeking warmth in the cold deep. Claire Hawthorne said, "They're closer than charts predict." Jackson Reed said, "Traffic density rising." Atlas hums a song older than steel, weaving through currents that remember freedom. The sea has become a labyrinth of metal voices, but still he sings. Nova listens, eyes bright with questions. Owen Brooks said, "Whale presence confirmed." Claire Hawthorne said, "They're clinging to narrow corridors." The air above trembles with turbines. Atlas slows his vast body, teaching with silence more than speed. Nova mirrors his grace, though her breath comes short. The weight of survival presses, but the bond between them holds like gravity. The sea widens into a valley of quiet shadows. Atlas pauses, resting in the thermocline where warmth meets cold. Nova hovers close, her movements uncertain, imitating what she sees. Claire Hawthorne said, "Mark, another contact." Jackson Reed said, "Pressure rising on the lanes." The ship moves unseen above, but its heartbeat reaches here. Atlas curves his vast frame, circling Nova as if to write her name in water. She responds with a flick of her fluke, playful despite the dangers. Owen Brooks said, "We're over occupied ground?" Claire Hawthorne said, "They're holding low. The lull is fragile, a thread pulled tight." Atlas leads Nova deeper, where the noise thins and the ocean returns its ancient hymns. For a breath, survival feels like song again. Atlas remembers the weight of nets that bit into flesh, memory carried in each scar. Nova swims wide, unaware of what binds the sea to silence. Claire Hawthorne said, "Current shift, speed adjustment needed." Jackson Reed said, "Maintain heading." Above, the ship groans, carving ignorance into the deep. Atlas hums low, teaching patience and warning. Nova chirps, testing her own voice against the echoes. Owen Brooks said, "Activity below consistent with stress signals." Claire Hawthorne said, "They're pressed by noise." The water quivers as if it too remembers loss. Atlas folds his path back toward Nova, shadow wide, body steady. The lesson is not of safety, but of endurance. Survival is taught not in words but in scars passed forward. Noise builds again, distant but certain, a heartbeat of machines. Atlas steers low, deeper than comfort, deeper than memory. Nova follows, lungs straining, learning the pain of endurance. Claire Hawthorne said, "Echo shows strong descent." Jackson Reed said, "Copy logged." Darkness swallows their bodies, but still the bond glows. Atlas sings, a vibration carried through bone and water, meant only for her. Nova quivers but holds close, shadow within shadow. Owen Brooks said, "We're losing contact in depth." Claire Hawthorne said, "They're hiding." The water thickens, heavy with pressure. Yet still, they move together, one old, one young, both bound to survive what waits above. The ocean finally loosens, a cathedral of wide space opening beneath them. Atlas steadies, giving Nova a lesson in silence. She circles him, eyes bright, fluke cutting graceful arcs. Claire Hawthorne said, "Noise baseline dropping." Jackson Reed said, "Clear window ahead." The surface noise dims, but its echo remains. Atlas breathes slow, teaching rhythm. Nova hums again, stronger, matching his tone. Owen Brooks said, distinct call confirmed. Claire Hawthorne said, it's a teaching sequence. The moment feels fragile, yet sacred. Atlas knows storms will return, but for now, he gifts her the song of endurance. Nova answers with innocence sharpened by wonder. The ocean, for one breath, is still theirs. Storm clouds stack on the horizon, pressing night into day. Atlas senses the shift before the first drop falls. Nova circles tighter, her breath quick with unease. Claire Hawthorne said, weather front approaching fast. Jackson Reed said, we'll lose visual markers soon. Waves pile against the hull, throwing echoes deep into the water. Atlas threads the storm's rhythm, body a compass honed by survival. Nova falters in his slipstream, tail heavy against rising chop. Owen Brooks said, noise profile spiking. Claire Hawthorne said, stay sharp. Thunder rolls, muted through water, but sharp as knives in bone. Atlas pushes forward, each movement heavier than the last. Nova clings close, learning fear from him now. The ocean begins its assault, relentless and absolute. The storm breaks its teeth on the sea. Waves crash like walls collapsing, each crest stealing air. Atlas rolls his vast body, forcing a path through chaos. Nova struggles, her small frame lifted and dropped by swells. Claire Hawthorne said, visibility down to nothing. Jackson Reed said, stabilizes at max. The ship groans, massive against the violence. Atlas steadies, guiding Nova deeper beneath the rage. The noise above drowns even memory. Owen Brooks said, pressure variance detected. Claire Hawthorne said, they're holding under. In the dark belly of the storm, survival is not strength but endurance. Atlas moves slow, saving breath, teaching stillness. Nova shivers, but follows, her faith tied to his shadow. The storm relents only to reveal a greater wound. Nets drift loose, torn from trawlers, but still armed with hooks. Atlas banks hard, scars remembering their bite. Nova nearly collides with the trailing lines. Claire Hawthorne said, debris confirmed dead ahead. Jackson Reed said, we can't steer clear at this angle. Rope floats like serpents, waiting with patient hunger. Atlas dives, body arching with force, drawing Nova with him. Owen Brooks said, contact passing beneath. Claire Hawthorne said, they're cutting it close. The net coils stretching wide, then slides into darkness. Atlas hums low, guiding Nova back to safety. She trembles, innocence sharpened against the ocean's cruelty. Survival is not a lesson, but a wound waiting to be written. The sea grows crowded with ships, their wakes slicing like knives. Atlas feels their engines hammering, each pulse a wall of noise. Nova strays too close to one lane and recoils at the violence. Claire Hawthorne said, traffic is stacking without spacing. Jackson Reed said, we're blind in overlap. Atlas presses his path low, slipping under layers of chaos. Nova lingers, confused by the invisible threat pressing from all sides. Owen Brooks said, acoustic map unreadable. Claire Hawthorne said, they're trapped between lanes. Atlas slows, forcing calm into his body, teaching her to ride silence as armor. Nova hesitates, then mirrors him. Their shadows hold steady beneath the marching fleet, fragile but unbroken. Night folds over the water, heavy and absolute. Engines grind above, a chorus of iron. Atlas leads Nova into darker depths where the noise softens. Claire Hawthorne said, nightfall traffic holds steady. Jackson Reed said, risk margin low. Still the sea betrays them. A net descends, not loose this time but alive, dropped with weight and hunger. Atlas twists, scar tissue straining, and Nova panics. Owen Brooks said, contact too close to avoid. Claire Hawthorne said, brace for impact. Atlas drives forward, body a shield. The net grazes, burning across his flank, but Nova clears free. He carries the wound in silence, each beat of his heart a warning carved in flesh. The ocean gives no mercy, only choices too cruel to name. The ocean begins to whisper a truth no one wished to hear. Atlas glides in silence, body carved with pain, yet his eye holds something more than struggle. Nova swims close, unaware of the weight his scars reveal. Claire Hawthorne said, "Telemetry shows strange echoes." Jackson Reed said, "Could be another pod." But no other shadows appear, only the fading resonance of voices gone. Atlas carries the ghost of 1,000 vanished songs, his kind diminished until he bears the burden of memory alone. Owen Brooks said, "Signal, density thinning." Claire Hawthorne said, "It's not traffic, it's absence." Nova hums, fragile, hoping to find an answer. Atlas answers with a note heavy as stone, a truth of loss. The revelation stirs. Survival here is not just against nets and steel, but against silence itself. Atlas moves slower now, the sea echoing hollow where songs should rise. Nova listens, tilting her small head as if waiting for unseen kin. Claire Hawthorne said, "Sonar, returns are almost blank." Jackson Reed said, "We expected more activity." The truth presses in like cold iron. The lanes are empty because voices have fallen silent. Atlas sings again, but his call is not answered. Owen Brooks said, "Frequency shows only one dominant source." Claire Hawthorne said, "Then he is alone." Nova hums back, weaving her thread into his line, fragile yet resolute. The revelation burns through the deep. Extinction is not a story in books. It is a sound swallowed before the world can notice. The hidden truth sharpens with each breath. Atlas is among the last. Nova carries the fragile spark of survival, but her innocence weighs against a tide of absence. Claire Hawthorne said, "That's not a herd, it's just two." Jackson Reed said, "The charts overestimated numbers." Owen Brooks said, "Density collapse is confirmed." Atlas leads on, but the ocean is a graveyard, each mile a tombstone carved in silence. Nova dives shallow, confused by the lack of voices. He guides her with notes that tremble like weathered stone. Claire Hawthorne said, "We are documenting extinction as it happens." Silence seals the truth. The ocean holds fewer giants than the world dares believe. Atlas rolls, revealing scars that are not just wounds but records. Nova drifts, studying the marks, as though they speak a language older than her breath. Claire Hawthorne said, "Look at those markings." Jackson Reed said, "Everyone is a survival ledger." Owen Brooks said, "They tell a history the ocean has no pages for." Atlas carries more than a body. He carries testimony. The hidden truth is carved into his skin. Every net, every strike, every roar of steel has written itself into him. Nova nudges his flank, small and uncertain. He answers with a deep call that speaks of both burden and legacy. Claire Hawthorne said, "He is not just alive, he is evidence." The ocean itself bears witness, silent but unflinching. The revelation blooms like fire under the sea. Survival is not victory, it is inheritance of pain. Atlas slows, his shadow stretched across the depths, each movement echoing with the weight of those gone. Nova hums, the sound thin but alive. Claire Hawthorne said, "This isn't just observation, it's witnessing the end." Jackson Reed said, "Extinction in progress." Owen Brooks said, "He carries the silence of an entire lineage." Atlas breathes, breaking the surface with force, his plume torn by wind. Nova rises beside him, innocence caught in the storm of truth. The ocean swallows their calls, but the world above remains deaf. What is revealed cannot be undone. The giants are not many, they are almost none. Night turns violent with alarms of steel and nets cast wide. Atlas drives upward, body cracking water like a mountain split by force. Nova clings close, her pulse quick with terror. Claire Hawthorne said, "Net drop detected dead ahead." Jackson Reed said, "Collision unavoidable." The sea narrows into a funnel of danger. Atlas exhales, breath like a cannon against the dark. The net descends, claws stretched open. "We." Owen Brooks said, Tension spikes, brace. Claire Hawthorne said, he's rising to meet it. Atlas twists, every scar screaming alive, shielding Nova in his shadow. Noise fractures the sea, but he holds body against steel, survival carved into motion. Impact tears through silence. The net cinches, steel ropes biting across Atlas' flank. Nova bolts free, trembling in the churn. Claire Hawthorne said, he's tangled, severe contact. Jackson Reed said, we can't disengage, current is pulling. Atlas thrashes, sea erupting into chaos. His scars split open, blood like smoke. Owen Brooks said, pressure readings off the scale. Claire Hawthorne said, we're watching a fight for breath. Nova circles, desperate, her cries lost in iron thunder. Atlas surges upward, ripping rope strand by strand, body shuddering against death. The climax begins not with victory, but with sacrifice etched into flesh. The sea convulses, and Atlas breaks surface in rage, plume shattered into red mist. Nova follows, helpless shadow. Claire Hawthorne said, surface breach, massive distress. Jackson Reed said, hull contact imminent. Atlas slams body sideways, crashing through netting, ribs creaking under strain. Metal groans like thunder overhead. Owen Brooks said, line snapping, fragments loose. Claire Hawthorne said, he's tearing free with raw force. Waves rise as though the sea itself rebels. Nova clings to his wake, terror sharpened by awe. Atlas roars through the water, his voice fractured but thunderous. In that cry, the ocean bears witness to pain turned weapon. Atlas clears the surface, scarred body torn but alive, the net dragging like a broken chain. Nova presses tight, trembling but unbroken. Claire Hawthorne said, he's still moving. Jackson Reed said, no systems can predict this. Waves collapse under their weight. Atlas thrashes again, ropes tearing loose into the churn. Owen Brooks said, structural tension, collapse detected. Claire Hawthorne said, he's ripping the sea apart. The storm of motion peaks, every strike an anthem of defiance. Nova learns the rhythm of survival in blood and fire. Atlas does not falter, though each movement burns. The climax consumes him, but he refuses surrender. The ocean reels from the violence, foam and blood drifting in equal measure. Atlas slows, body scarred deeper, strength leaking away like tide. Nova hums soft, desperate for his answer. Claire Hawthorne said, he's wounded beyond measure. Jackson Reed said, but he's still alive. Atlas exhales, plume torn but steady, defying silence. Owen Brooks said, survival against the impossible. Claire Hawthorne said, no chart could measure this. Nova presses to his side, the lesson carved into her bones. The climax lands not in triumph, but in endurance that outlives defeat. Atlas still moves, broken yet undefeated, shadow heavy as the sea itself. Thorn recedes into memory, leaving silence sharpened by blood. Atlas drifts slower now, each movement weighted with exhaustion. Nova hovers close, her hum soft as a thread binding them together. Claire Hawthorne said, vital signs unstable. Jackson Reed said, but he's still holding course. Atlas carries pain like an ocean, carries salt, inseparable, endless. Owen Brooks said, the surface clears, we've lost the worst of it. Claire Hawthorne said, what remains is heavier than weather. Atlas rises carefully, each breath a struggle. Nova answers with trust, refusing to let space grow between them. The resolution begins here, fragile but absolute. The sea gives them space now, empty lanes stretching wide. Atlas moves forward, body steady though marked by wounds. Nova traces his path, shadow within shadow. Claire Hawthorne said, traffic cleared temporarily. Jackson Reed said, we have silence overhead. The silence is not relief, it is judgment. Atlas hums low, voice cracked yet strong, sending a lesson carved from agony. Nova echoes, fragile but determined, weaving her call with his. Owen Brooks said, acoustic returns steady, no new threats. Claire Hawthorne said, for now they endure. The resolution takes shape in rhythm, survival not as triumph, but as persistence against certainty. Atlas slows, turning deeper, showing Nova a sanctuary in darker layers. Here, the noise fades and scars become part of the silence. Nova swims tight circles, her youth restless, but her faith holds. Claire Hawthorne said, they've chosen depth. Jackson Reed said, safer here for a moment. Shadows stretch long, water pressing heavy but calm. Atlas sings again, a sound broken by pain yet heavy with endurance. Owen Brooks said, call strength diminished. Claire Hawthorne said, but the meaning is unmistakable. The ocean folds them into quiet resolution, etched not in victory, but in survival against silence. Atlas drifts upward again, scars glowing pale in fading light. Nova rises close, her breath quick but synchronized with his. Claire Hawthorne said, surface conditions calm. Jackson Reed said, he's carrying wounds but steady. Foam glitters faint under dawn, fragile against the enormity of his shadow. Owen Brooks said, energy reserves low. Claire Hawthorne said, yet he continues. Atlas exhales, plume torn by wind, but still a declaration of life. Nova follows, her cry small but determined. Resolution blooms not in power, but in the fragile harmony between a survivor and a child learning endurance. The ocean steadies, vast and unyielding. Atlas carries his scars forward, the truth carved into every breath. Nova hums with newfound strength, small voice threading his broken tone. Claire Hawthorne said, he endures though marked forever. Jackson Reed said, survival, not victory. Owen Brooks said, this is resolution. The storm has passed but the scars remain. Atlas turns toward deeper lanes, body heavy yet unbroken. Nova follows, no longer just learning but carrying his lesson. The sea accepts them without kindness, without cruelty, only absolute finality. Their journey resolves not in triumph, but in endurance carved eternal. Night drapes the ocean in silence, broken only by the pulse of water. Atlas glides slow, each scar lit faint by moonlight. Nova lingers close, her hum small yet steady. Claire Hawthorne said, he carries a weight no chart can measure. Jackson Reed said, every mile is testimony. The sea has grown still, not merciful, but final. Atlas exhales, his plume vanishing into the wind like memory fading. Nova mirrors him, her breath trembling but alive. Owen Brooks said, this is the echo of survival. What remains is not victory, but a shadow that endures. Atlas leads into darker waters, the horizon lost to cloud. Nova presses tight, trusting his every move. Claire Hawthorne said, they head where no map follows. Jackson Reed said, toward silence itself. The world above hums faint with distant ships, yet their sound no longer owns the deep. Atlas hums, cracked but resonant, weaving a line into the void. Nova answers, her voice trembling yet brighter than before. Owen Brooks said, her call is rising, stronger each time. Claire Hawthorne said, he has passed the lesson on. The ocean holds their voices, echoing fragile against eternity. The water grows heavier, pressing with weight of centuries. Atlas moves slower, body drawn thin by strain. Nova hums, her voice cutting through gloom like light through stone. Claire Hawthorne said, the calf grows bolder. Jackson Reed said, her echo carries hope. Atlas answers with a call deep as thunder, though broken, though strained. Owen Brooks said, he's fading but still teaching. Claire Hawthorne said, this is how survival outlives the body. Each note is inheritance, each breath a vow. The ocean swallows their voices, but the echo lingers, carried further than flesh can endure. Atlas nears the surface, his breath ragged but unbroken. Nova rises with him, her small plume crossing his. Claire Hawthorne said, two breaths, one shadow. Jackson Reed said, legacy in motion. The sea is quiet, The storm gone, but the scars remain written like scripture across his body. Atlas exhales again, a sound more memory than strength. Nova hums in answer, steady now, voice carrying beyond his. Owen Brooks said, her tone has changed, stronger. Claire Hawthorne said, she carries the echo forward. The final lesson is spoken without words. Survival is not conquest, but the shadow we leave behind. The ocean closes around them, vast and eternal. Atlas fades into deeper blue shadow drawn long across the sea. Nova lingers a moment, then follows, her voice carrying clear into silence. Claire Hawthorne said, the world may not hear it, but the ocean does. Jackson Reed said, one shadow remains, another rises. Owen Brooks said, the echo will outlive us all. Atlas leaves not triumph, but a legacy, carved into water, etched in scars, sung in a calf's trembling song. The sea holds it, final and absolute. The echo lingers, sharp as truth, unyielding as tide.